In 2023, scientists aimed a beam of cosmic rays at the Great Pyramid. The same technology used to see inside active volcanoes. The same technology used to scan damaged nuclear reactors. They were looking for hidden rooms, and they found one. A corridor, sealed inside the stone, unknown to the entire world for 4,500 years. They sent in a camera. The corridor was empty. Or, the part they could see was empty, because the corridor narrows at the far end, and nobody knows what it narrows toward. That discovery is from 2 years ago, and it barely made the news. Because here's the thing about the Great Pyramid that took me a long time to understand. It isn't one mystery. It is dozens of them, stacked inside each other, each one leading to something stranger than the last. There are sealed doors inside this building that no human being has ever opened. There are underground chambers that radar has detected, but no one has excavated. There are symbols painted by ancient hands inside a shaft so narrow you couldn't fit your shoulders through it. Painted, sealed, and left in the dark for 4,000 years. And nobody can read them. Tonight, we're going to go through all of it. Not the surface version, the real version. The one that makes engineers uncomfortable. The one that keeps geologists up at night. The one where the further you go in, the less certain you become that we understand this building at all. I'll tell you right now, there is no clean ending to this story. But by the time we get there, I think you'll understand why the absence of an answer might be the most important thing of all. Let's start with the numbers, because the numbers are where the strangeness begins, and they never really stop. Imagine you're an engineer, a good one, someone who has spent a career building things that need to be precise, and someone hands you the measurements of the Great Pyramid. The base, they tell you, is level across its entire width, over 230 meters in every direction, to within 2 centimeters. The 4 corners point to true north, true south, true east, true west. Not magnetic north, which drifts. True north, to within a fraction of a degree. The ratio of the perimeter to the height, if you work it out, comes to something remarkably close to 2 times pi. The slope of the faces encodes the golden ratio, and the structure has stood, essentially unchanged, for 4,500 years. You'd look at those numbers and assume you were looking at something modern, something built with GPS satellites and laser levels and computational surveying tools. And then someone tells you it was built with copper chisels and wooden sleds, and you'd say, run those numbers again, because something doesn't fit. Here's one comparison that I haven't been able to stop thinking about. The Greenwich Observatory in London was built in the 17th century. Its specific purpose was to establish precise geographic coordinates for the modern world. It was built by people with the best scientific instruments of their era. It is 6 degrees off true north. The Great Pyramid is off by less than 1/10 of a degree. The building that modern civilization constructed specifically to measure the Earth is less accurate than something built 45 centuries before it. That's not a footnote. That's a problem. And it leads to a question that mainstream archaeology has never been able to answer cleanly. Where did that precision come from? Hold that question. We'll come back to it. Because the answer, or rather, the absence of one, is going to matter. Before we go any deeper, I want to be fair about something. The mainstream explanation for the pyramid exists, And it is not stupid. It is built on real evidence, careful scholarship, and decades of genuine archaeological work. Here's what it says. Around 2560 BCE, a pharaoh named Khufu commissioned the greatest building project the ancient world had ever seen. His chief overseer, a man named Hemiunu, Khufu's own nephew, designed and managed it. The workers were not slaves. That particular myth has been well and truly buried by the evidence. The people who built the pyramid were paid, housed, fed. They had access to physicians. We found skeletons with healed surgical fractures. They lived in purpose-built worker villages with bakeries, breweries, and administrative buildings. And they had names. There is graffiti on stones deep inside the pyramid. The work gangs gave themselves names. One called themselves Friends of Khufu. Another, and I genuinely love this, called themselves Drunkards of Menkaure. 4,500 years ago, construction workers had a sense of humor. Then, in 2017, something extraordinary turned up in a storage magazine at the Egyptian Museum. A papyrus scroll, the oldest ever found, written by a foreman named Merer. Merer kept a work diary, a mundane, bureaucratic, deeply human work diary. It describes his crew moving limestone casing blocks from the quarry at Tura, loading them onto barges, navigating the canal to the Giza site. Delivery schedules, crew rotations, quantities. It is the only first-hand account of pyramid construction that has ever been discovered, and it is extraordinary for what it confirms. Real people. Real work. A real construction project organized with impressive logistical precision. But here's where Merer goes quiet. His scroll covers the transport of exterior casing stones, the material that covered the outside face of the pyramid. Not the interior, not the chambers, not the shafts. Everything we can explain, we have a witness for. Everything we can't explain. Merer says nothing. That silence is not a small silence, because what happens inside the pyramid is where the real questions begin. I want to tell you about 4 tunnels. They run from the 2 main interior chambers, the King's Chamber and the Queen's Chamber, upward through the body of the pyramid at precise angles. They are narrow, barely wide enough for your shoulders. 2 of them exit through the outer face of the building. 2 of them end at stone doors. For a long time, archaeologists assumed they were symbolic, passages for the pharaoh's soul to travel to the afterlife, or simple ventilation shafts. That explanation held for most of the 20th century. Then, in the 1990s, a researcher named Robert Bauval did something that seems almost too simple. He took the angles of the shafts and extended them mathematically into the night sky. He wanted to see where they pointed. They pointed at stars, not randomly, not approximately. Specific stars in the positions they occupied in the sky around 2500 BCE. The southern shaft from the King's Chamber aimed at Al-Nitak, the lowest star in Orion's belt. In ancient Egyptian cosmology, Orion represented Osiris, the god of death and resurrection. The northern shaft from the same chamber aimed at Thuban, the pole star of that era, the fixed axis around which the entire visible sky rotated. These were not accidents of geometry. Someone designed 4 tunnels, drilled through hundreds of meters of solid limestone at precise angles, so that they would point at specific, cosmologically significant stars. Not for any purpose that serves ventilation, not for any purpose that serves construction. This was deliberate. And the word that keeps coming back to me is not architecture, it's message. The question, the one I can't shake, is a message for whom? Because here's what comes next. 2 of those 4 shafts don't open to the sky. They end at sealed stone doors. In 1993, a small robot called Upuaut was sent through the southern shaft of the Queen's chamber. It traveled 65 meters into the pyramid, farther than any person had ever reached, until it came to a small, flat stone door, with 2 copper handles on its face. The robot couldn't go further. In 2002, a more advanced robot drilled a small hole through that door and sent a camera through. Behind it was a short chamber and another door. In 2011, a robot with a camera flexible enough to look around corners was sent in to peer behind the second door. What it found has never been fully explained. Red ochre markings on the stone floor and ceiling. Symbols, drawn by a human hand, drawn during construction, before the shaft was sealed, and then locked inside that space, unreachable in total darkness, for 4,000 years. No one had been able to decode them definitively. No one knows what they mean. And the chamber continues beyond what the camera could see. We don't know what's at the end. Think about what that means. Think about what it means that something, a room, a passage, a chamber, was built inside this structure that was never meant to be entered again. That someone painted symbols on the floor in the dark, knowing no human eye would see them, possibly for thousands of years. What do you write in a room you're sealing forever? We don't know. And that's only one layer. Because there's another discovery, one that's even harder to explain. And it doesn't involve the pyramid at all. It involves the thing standing next to it. The Sphinx has been sitting at the edge of the Giza Plateau for about as long as the pyramid has. Or so we thought. In the early 1990s, a geologist from Boston University named Robert Schoch was invited to Giza by an alternative researcher named John Anthony West. Schoch is not a sensationalist. He's a specialist in rock erosion. That's his field. And when he examined the limestone walls of the enclosure around the Sphinx, not the Sphinx itself, but the walls of the pit cut into the bedrock to create it, he said something that archaeology has never fully recovered from. The erosion pattern was wrong. Wind and sand erosion, which is what you'd expect in the Saharan desert, creates horizontal striations. Smooth, layered marks cutting across the rock face. What Schoch found were deep, rounded, vertical channels, the kind carved by water, specifically by rain, heavy, sustained, repeated rainfall over a very long period of time. Egypt hasn't received rainfall sufficient to cause that kind of erosion since at least 5000 BCE. Most estimates push it to 7000 BCE or earlier. If Schoch's reading of the geology is correct, and he has defended it for 30 years in peer-reviewed contexts, the Sphinx enclosure is thousands of years older than the pyramid, not hundreds. Thousands. Carved during a period when the Sahara was wet, when rainfall was consistent, and when, according to conventional archaeology, no civilization capable of carving a monument that size yet existed. The mainstream response is firm. Alternative weathering explanations have been proposed, and the most compelling argument against Schoch is this: no tools, no artifacts, no human remains consistent with an earlier civilization have ever been found at Giza. If someone built the Sphinx 6,000 or 8,000 years before Khufu, where is everything else they left behind? Schoch has an answer for that, too. He suggests that the evidence may be underwater, submerged by rising sea levels at the end of the last ice age, and that we simply haven't looked in the right places yet. It's possible. It might also be convenient. The honest position is that the geology is real. The timeline it implies is radical, and the question it raises has never been closed. What was at Giza before the pharaohs? And this is where the story gets wider, because the Sphinx is not alone in this. The Great Pyramid is not the only impossible thing from the ancient world. That sentence is worth repeating. Not the only one. Go to southeastern Turkey to a site called Göbekli Tepe. It is a temple complex, enormous carved limestone pillars, some of them 5 meters tall, arranged in circular formations and decorated with sophisticated animal carvings. It was built 12,000 years ago by hunter-gatherers, people who, according to the conventional historical timeline, had not yet invented agriculture, had not yet formed permanent settlements, were not supposed to be constructing monumental ceremonial architecture of any kind, and yet they did, on a scale that would have required substantial organized labor and at least some level of engineering knowledge. And then, around 9,000 years ago, someone deliberately buried it. Not abandoned, buried, filled in systematically with rubble and earth and worked stone, as if they were trying to hide it. We only found it because a farmer's plow hit a carved stone pillar in 1994. Why would you bury your greatest achievement? What were you hiding it from? Go to the mountains of Peru to Sacsayhuaman, where stone walls are built from individual boulders weighing over 100 tons, fitted together with such precision that the joins are invisible. No mortar, no gaps. The same technique as the Great Pyramid's interior chambers on the other side of the world. Go to Pumapunku in Bolivia, where stone blocks have been cut and drilled with tolerances so fine that engineers who've studied them reach for a word that makes archaeologists uncomfortable. Machined, not carved. Machined. With tools we have no record of. The pattern keeps appearing. Different cultures, different continents, different centuries. The same impossible precision. Either we have been consistently, catastrophically underestimating what ancient human beings were capable of, or something is missing from the story, something we haven't found yet. And here is the detail, from mainstream archaeology, not from any fringe theory, that I think deserves more attention than it has ever received. The Egyptians built the Great Pyramid near the very beginning of their civilization. Let me be precise about what that means. Khufu's pyramid, the Great Pyramid, is the largest, the most precise, the most mathematically sophisticated pyramid ever built by ancient Egypt, and it was built first. What came after was worse. The pyramids constructed by Khufu's successors, built by rulers who had the Great Pyramid right in front of them, who could look at it every day, who had access to the same workforce and the same quarries and the same institutional knowledge. Those pyramids have less precise alignments, cruder stonework. Some of them developed structural problems during construction. One collapsed entirely. The trajectory goes, perfect at the start, then declining. That is not how any technology in recorded history has ever developed. Civilization learns. That is its defining characteristic. It builds on what came before. The first generation produces something rough. The second generation improves it. By the 10th generation, you have something refined. But Egyptian pyramid building went in the opposite direction. It started at the summit and worked its way down. The only explanation that fits that pattern, the only one, is that the knowledge used to build the Great Pyramid was not developed by the Egyptians. It was inherited. It came from somewhere else, from someone else. And once the builders who held that knowledge were gone, it couldn't be reconstructed. It could only be approximated, poorly, by those who came after. That conclusion is uncomfortable. It is also, in the view of a growing number of researchers, unavoidable. And now, with that in mind, let me tell you about what's happening right now. In 2025, at the Giza Plateau, there is still a hidden corridor inside the pyramid that no one fully understands. There are still chambers beneath the plateau that seismic surveys have located, but that have never been excavated. The Egyptian government controls access to the site, and the approval process for research is slow and selective. Some teams wait years. There are still the sealed doors with the copper handles. The second door, beyond the first, in the southern shaft of the Queen's chamber. The chamber beyond it has never been physically entered. There are still the red ochre symbols on the floor of that sealed space, painted in the dark, 4,000 years ago, for reasons we cannot determine, by someone who knew no living eye would see them. All of this is real. All of this is unresolved. And somewhere in the middle of all of it, in the middle of the mathematics and the alignments and the locked rooms and the impossible precision, I keep coming back to a man named Merer, sitting by lamplight, 4,500 years ago, writing in his diary. He's tired. His body aches. His crew has moved stones all day, and they'll do it again tomorrow. He's not thinking about mystery. He is thinking about rations and river levels, and how many blocks he needs to move by the end of the month. He has no idea that what he's helping to build will still be standing when human beings walk on the moon. He has no idea that someone will find his diary in a museum storage room in the 21st century and hold it like something sacred. He was just doing his job. And that's the thing I can't get past. Real people built this. Real people with sore muscles and crew nicknames and a sense of humor. Real people who went home at the end of the day and ate dinner and slept. And yet what they left behind, whether they fully understood it or not, contains layers of mathematical and astronomical knowledge that the rest of civilization took thousands of years to rediscover. The pyramid preserved something. I'm just not sure we know yet what it was trying to say. The building is still talking. That's the only way I know how to put it. Every decade, new technology finds something inside it that the previous decade missed. Cosmic ray imaging found a new corridor in 2023. Seismic surveys found underground anomalies that haven't been explained. A robot found a sealed room with ancient writing that no one has decoded. What does a building have to do to get our full attention? There's a version of this story where everything has a clean explanation, where the precision is the result of extraordinary human ingenuity and organization, where the astronomical alignments are intentional, but their meaning is religious, not scientific, where the sealed rooms are empty and the symbols are ceremonial, and there are no lost civilizations and no inherited knowledge and no missing chapters. That version might be correct, but it requires every anomaly to have a mundane explanation, every uncomfortable number to be a coincidence. every silence in the record to mean nothing. And the thing about this building, the thing that makes it different from every other ancient mystery, is that the anomalies don't stop. The list keeps growing. Every answer opens a new question. Every sealed door has another door behind it. I don't have an ending for this story. I'm not sure the story has one yet. The pyramid was built to last forever. It has. Whatever it was built to say, we're still learning to listen.